Well, here we are in one of our first podcast episodes. I am lucky enough to be joined by Zach Palmquist with Caterpillar, and I'm Griffin Riom, as I introed in the previous video. And Zach, when I was first talking about coming up with this, you were one of the first guys that came up with, like, somebody I've known for a long time, but I think somebody that is still very passionate in the space of technicians, and not just the technician space, but then also what technical education and like the skills of the trade process does, and how much it is really built into the core of who we are, and then how much that has benefited our careers. So would you mind just kind of giving a quick bio on yourself, and then we can kind of weave into that story of, when we first met and how kind of our careers have pretty much followed a very similar path throughout.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on, Griff. And so I'm Zach Palmquist. I grew up in Northern California. My dad actually worked for a Caterpillar dealer, when I was growing up. So I've always been pretty close to Caterpillar equipment, and, had that kind of that gearhead passion for how things work, getting dirty, and, really just enjoyed the customers as well that use our machines. As I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my dad, working on Cat equipment. And, so as I got close to the graduation of high school, started looking at opportunities. Do I want to, potentially be like a motorcycle mechanic, or really what do I want to do? And at the end of the day, I worked auto body in high school, and at the end of the day, I enjoyed, working on dirt bikes and motorcycles and auto body, but my true passion was with Caterpillar equipment. And so after high school, was fortunate enough to be hired on by Peterson Tractor and join the Think Big class starting in the fall of 2003.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast that time has gone by.
Yeah, seems like yesterday, but it's gone quite quick.
Yeah, for sure. So you touched on a couple of things, and I think a lot of the same stuff that I experienced when I was a kid too. So I mean, you were into dirt bike racing, and then also you did snowmobile racing for a little while too, right?
Snowmobile racing,
and you were sponsored?
Well. Yeah, sponsored. Rode for Polaris for 1 year, and Arctic Cat for a few more. Racing in the West, and those are fun times for sure. But you also realize the value of money real fast with those. And so if you're going to have hobbies like that, you start thinking about, well, how am I going to fund this if I'm going to keep it up?
Yeah, and that pivotal moment too, I think we're about like 17, 18, and I think you and I were in a very similar situation where a lot of our peers were going to USC. They were going to go down to Sac State or go over to Chico. I guess I hadn't thought about it as much, just because of the way that my community was. Everybody kind of followed the same model of, well, there's CR College down the road, and then I'll just feel that out. My older brother had done the same thing, gone through his associate's degree, but then my senior year, when I was in welding, there was a recruiter that came by to talk to one of our classes, and he started talking about the Think Big program. And that it's one of those key moments in life. And I think for me, it was definitely life-changing, because I went from, I had some direction, and then I just became laser focused, which at that age is really, really rare to be able to have that kind of scenario.
Absolutely. I have a similar story. I actually had signed up to go to UTI.
Oh, really?
Because at the time, UTI was advertising a lot on TV, and it's like, oh, I want to go to a technical school. And obviously when you see the commercials, it's like, oh, that's a beautiful facility. And I can still remember the day that my dad had the Think Big brochure on the back of his service truck. And he's like, hey, I talked with, the local dealer, and they have this program starting up in the fall. And I remember like looking through, I actually still have that Think Big brochure, and reading through it and being like, oh, this is a no-brainer. So I don't remember if my parents had put $400 or $500 down for the UTI enrollment, but they were pretty happy to give that up and have me pursue a Caterpillar career. And very similar story, a lot of my classmates from high school were going to university, and they really didn't have a plan on what they were going to do with their career. they were just going to university to go. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I struggled with that. I struggled with talking with the high school counselors about that, because I just didn't want to go to a school just because I really wanted a career and I really wanted some direction, and you know understand, like, okay, what if I'm going to commit to further education, what am I going to get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with the Think Big program, you're the classes are small, they're tailored to really develop the students, and then on top of that, you're getting a career with a global brand, and
Yeah.
not a lot of other opportunities can offer that.
Yeah, and I guess before we get too far down the rabbit hole, I think we should maybe take a step back and give some background on the Think Big program, because for us at CAT, it's very like, it's one of those terms that gets thrown out a lot. But if we're talking to, maybe somebody who hadn't heard about it before, a potential candidate. So the Think Big program has been around for, I believe, 20 years now. And it's a associate's degree program that you can go right into out of high school. And you'll go to one of the numerous schools that are throughout the U.S. It's almost state by state now at this point. And there's a number of different dealers that participate, Caterpillar dealerships that cover their different regions, and they all kind of source one educational institute to be their talent pipeline. What's really cool about this program, well, I mean, there's several things that are really cool about this program, but in terms of the coursework, it's about 80% technical and then 20% gen ed. So you're really focused on the stuff that, I think for somebody that is interested in skilled trades, you're going to be really working in that area. The other thing I really liked about is it was fast paced. So our model, and we could talk more about on, the professional side of it here in a minute, but when we were going to school, it was like a job. It wasn't like a lot of my friends, it was, oh man, I'm sleeping until 10. And then, I can't even, who gets a 11 o'clock class on a Monday? I can't even do that. And our model was pretty much from 7 a.m. or 7:30 to 4 every day, just like a 9 to 5 or kind of a 40-hour work week. And then the other piece, with that amount of hours, plus all of the lab time that you're doing on top of it, when everybody's taking midterms, you're taking finals. And then the rest of the semester, we were going back to our dealerships and working. So by the time we graduated with our associate's degree, we were graduating with depending on how much overtime, which I know you were big on, we were graduating with over 2,000 hours of on-the-job training, plus the education that backed it too. And I don't think many, back then especially, I don't think many associate level degrees offered that kind of hands-on experience. Yeah, so yeah, you and I were talking a little bit about, before we started recording, but we were talking about the mentoring aspect, but then just like how much that program kind of helped us focus and helped us really grow up in the sense of this is what's expected of you in the working world. And I think that's something that really did me a huge service. And I don't know if you kind of had any examples that came up from that.
Oh, absolutely. The instructors in the Think Big program, I at least know that one of them was former military, right? So he, I guess the expectations were very clear, and
yeah.
That's a great example, to have as an instructor, because discipline, but also, very stern. And again, you and I, we were around our dads a lot growing up, so we kind of had that coming in. But some students, they're still young adults, right? And 7 o'clock class might be early, and so I believe that not only are you learning a career in technical abilities, but you're also learning how to behave in the workplace, how to behave as an adult. If class starts at 7, as we were talking, the expectation was you'd be in your seat at 6:58 or 6:59 because the instructor starts speaking at 7. And some of our counterparts didn't make it through the program because they struggled with that concept. And and in all reality, if the dealer is spending that type of money on you to develop you, and you're not able to understand that or recognize that, then it's probably not going to work out. And again, the Think Big program is not about, if 30 individuals start, it's important that 30 individuals finish. It's really, we want the best quality students to complete the program versus the quantity. So, and I believe that just working with back at the dealership as well, really helped me mature,
Yeah.
into a young adult. Again, you're not babysat at the dealership. You're given responsibility. You're being asked to perform certain tasks, and with that, you are expected to perform. And the
Mhm.
Think Big program is really good at on the dealership side as well. Assigning journeymen that are veterans that
Yeah.
within their dealership, responsible for grooming, and some of those folks I'm still connected with today, and very fortunate for their leadership, both at the dealership, but also just how to behave and how to best support our customers.
For sure. Yeah, those as we get more and more into the space, I think and we always kind of talk about mentoring as a cliche. I feel it becomes a cliche. And when things become a cliche, we just talk about something with a very vapid or like empty approach. And we really need to think about why that mentoring piece is so important. And it's a reminder and like what a mentor is. Like if you go back to the original journeyman process, and this was, back in the ancient Greek days, like you would go work with a tradesperson. So I got to the age of 12 or 13, and like back then, and I decided I want to become a carpenter. Well, it's okay, now you need to go work with a master carpenter, and then you follow that person. So that person is teaching you like this is how you do it. But I'm assuming just like today, as it would happen back then, you're not going to be just talking about carpentry or diesel tech mechanicking in our world. There's going to be life lessons that come with that, and the life struggles. And I think the perspective and the insight you get from people that aren't just your parents and aren't just your normal friends, that helps build you a lot and helps really kind of shape who you are as an individual and as a contributing adult.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I still remember is, as part of the Think Big program, when you show up on day one to start your 8 weeks at the dealership, you get the packet of the responsibilities or the items
Oh,
that
yeah,
you're
your
supposed to
to-do list,
complete,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's the service manager handing that packet, one to you and then one to your journeyman
Hmm.
and your mentor. And it really comes down to you need to work with this individual to demonstrate that you have these abilities. But
Yeah.
then also from the journeyman, he needs to sign off that
Yeah.
it. And I always had the impression from my journeyman mentors that they took that part extremely serious, because they did not want to sign that you could rebuild high pressure fuel pumps and our fuel components or engines without them seeing that you
Hmm.
could actually do it. And so I always felt like they always had my best interest, because they would not sign off until they knew that I was ready, and I had completed that.
Yeah, it's especially when they're next on the line. I think that's when that accountability really wanted. Are you sure you know how to do this?
Yeah, a little bit different than just like a mentoring, like over the phone, like, oh yeah, go ahead and do that. Like they're actually
Yeah.
signing up that yes, you know how to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So, you graduate the Think Big program, and I should step back to in one additional point. So, the Think Big program is one of other options that we offer at Caterpillar for technical education. There's a thing called the ABC program, and that's Accelerated Boot Camp, and that is kind of a quick process. If you wanted to go to work directly for the dealership right away, if they have that program in place, within 3 to 4 months, you're trained to be fully proficient there at the shop. Our program was a 2-year program because it was an associate's degree, and then we also have the Think Bigger program that both you and I went through as well. For the first time in my educational experience, my educational career, this is when I became passionate, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to get an associate's degree. And then I got even more invigorated by this of like, well, let's see what a bachelor's degree in this looks like. So you and I think I went out a year or so before, and then we took that big step. And to go work for the dealership's a big step, and then to be so emboldened as to take the next big step of going for your bachelor's degree and then moving from what we would call kind of paradise of Northern California to southeastern Kansas, which we learned to love over time. And then throughout our career, it's really about these really big steps. That what's been your thought process in that? I mean, or is it just kind of you're putting a lot into this, or things kind of come and then you're like, okay, let's see how this next adventure goes?
Well, it was a bigger jump for me than I thought it would be. I remember at our Think Big graduation, you had talked about next, moving on to the Think Bigger program, and I wasn't ready at that point to commit, and thankfully, I we stayed in contact and was able to learn more about Think Bigger with you being out there, and then also just I spent working full time at the dealership. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it, but when you're 20, 21, and you've been going to school for most of your life, and then you kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, am I really done? Do I think that do I think I'm good, or do you think I have the option to potentially learn a little bit more and grow my skill sets? And really that was what was weighing on me, that in between Think Big and Think Bigger was, do I want to continue to further my education? And I was very fortunate that in our discussions to learn more about the program, it's like, okay, if I'm going to resign from the cat dealer and move halfway across the country, it's going to be for the right reasons. And I flew out to Kansas and spent a week at Pittsburgh State, just learning more about the program, learning more about the faculty, and seeing that it was a very similar approach to Think Big, small school, small program, very focused on quality.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. So I took the necessary steps to make that happen.
Yeah. Sticking with that kind of small space too, I think that worked out really well for me, because if I went to one of these like 30,000 student schools, or like even these bigger ones, I don't think I'd have survived. Like, I don't think my education would have survived either. I'd have been too distracted to want to go have fun instead of buckle down and studying. So it really did be a huge benefit.
Well, and my wife went to engineering school here in Illinois.
Yeah.
And when we talk about like our university experience, my experience is sitting in a classroom with like 35 people, maybe max. That's about it at Pitt. And hers is like, well, being in a room with over 100, and it's like, oh, and and even just like our professor interactions, our professors knew our name, knew where we were from, who we wanted to potentially go work for, what our interests were, what'd you do this weekend type stuff. And she never had those relationships with her professors, which to me, both but Think Big and Think Bigger just seems foreign. Like, I can't imagine spending that amount of money and not having a professor know me in that way.
Yeah, I remember when I did that first trip out there, my dad went with me. Obviously, he was going to be flipping the bill, so he had a vested interest. But we went out to the technology center, and then it was, I know Dr. Dell, and I think Bob was with us too. And Bob Shore, Dr. Shore, sorry. But they toured us around the whole facility, and then they took us to lunch. And like, my dad was like, just from what I've seen with their interaction, I can already tell that your education is going to do fine as long as you apply yourself. They're going to be doing a huge service for you too. Yeah. But one thing that you were talking about, one thing we should be talking about too. So you were talking about that moment, like you had just finished your associate's degree and then you were working. Your associate's degree, was that through a scholarship?
It was, yes.
Okay. So the Think Big program, depending on the program, not all dealers throughout the US, but or throughout the world, but there are quite a few that do scholarship and they pay for the education. So we're talking about getting an associate's degree for free, and then you have the potential to earn money while you're going to school, and then your earning potential progresses as you're going through because you're getting that accreditation. And then you're at the point now, okay, you're 20, 21 years old, you've got a full-time job, and then you're weighing out if you want to keep moving on with your education. Now, if I was saying we follow the traditional model of, okay, I'm 17, 18 years old, and then I'm weighing out the options if I want to go through a 4-year degree and then put myself into, tens of thousands of dollars in debt, even more with certain institutions, and then a lot of people not knowing. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were in that situation like, hey, the very worst, and I just decide now that I'm not going to get my bachelor's degree, I've got a full-time job and a phenomenal job I've got right now with zero debt, and I can't think of a better situation to be sitting in when you're 20.
Yeah, and there's a lot of perks with Think Big too, as you know that some dealerships you're able to get some tools when you start, and depending on the program and the dealership, there's some rewards tied to GPA as well with those. So I was very fortunate that I was hunkered down and got good grades and Think Big, and was set up very well with a nice set of CAT and Snap-on tools.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the tools was a nice perk for sure, and you definitely had to make sure you were paying attention to your GPA though.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess shifting gears and not to speed through things too much, when you and I went through the job 17 years ago, the scenario we're facing today is the same exact scenario we were facing back then, and the reason that the Think Big program came about. Nobody's raising their kids to go into a skills trade. And everybody just seems to believe that the traditional approach of going to get a 4-year degree at a major university and then find yourself working at a corporation and then work yourself up through middle management and go through all those pieces while carrying a substantial load of debt. Not to totally discredit that approach, but that works for one. And I think what I really want to highlight with this podcast, as well as this discussion, is, success is really dependent on your own path, and that's how you're and how you're motivated as well. So if you're motivated by working with your hands, you can make really good money doing that. And even in the CAT technician world, we know that there's people that are out there making 6 figures as technicians. And then if you go international, there's some other very extreme examples of people making much more than that. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of work that goes with that, but I think there's this whole point though that we want to really shed some light on is, what we were raised understanding of what a technician did, and then what we actually saw were very different things. And then what we actually saw and what's going on today are very different things. And I mean that in the most positive light possible. So can you maybe talk about some myths that were kind of dispelled and some misconceptions that people had, and then something like you always kind of want to reinforce that today as you're talking to potential technicians?
Oh, for sure.
And parents too.
Well, and a lot of, there's, I would say that, back in the day, there was probably terms like mechanic or grease monkey or, those types of, yeah, exactly. And, there's some stigmatism that went with that and maybe looked down upon that. And what I would tell you is that, in my experience, a lot of those days are gone. The machines are much more advanced today than they ever have been. We have on some of our large mining trucks, we have multiple ECMs, which is an electronic control module. We have more computing power on some of those mining trucks than they had, when we went to the moon. So we are, the equipment industry as a whole is advancing, just like cars or anything else. So, back in the day, there were manual transmissions and clutches and gears and those types of things. And now we're talking, we have a 988, electric drive wheel loader and a D6 XE, electric bulldozer. So, the equipment is just it's advancing just as much as, like Tesla with automobiles. So, an individual that works at a Caterpillar dealer today, they need to be able to work on those products because those are the products that are going out into the field and being used. And in the mining space, we have multiple electric drive trucks. We have electric rope shovels. So there's there's a large variety of equipment in the world today, but a lot of those machines require people that can troubleshoot and really understand the systems versus swinging a sledgehammer or that type of work. I don't think there's as much grunt work today in that sense than and most people probably don't realize that when they're driving down the highway and seeing seeing these machines work. they're built to be rebuilt, but they're also built to be serviced as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a big thing. And I think really, and hopefully it's what really sets Caterpillar apart from others is, and I remember a really key phrase that came from one of the guys at Peterson some odd years ago. Don't show me what you know, show me what you can learn. And he really highlighted like, hey, you may think you have all the experience, but in the grand scheme of things, it's your ability to learn that's important to us. Now, to support that even better, we have really, really good training material that shows you, okay, this is how you go about troubleshooting. And that starts giving you these critical thinking skills in terms of understanding what we're looking for. So you talked a lot about technology, and then you talked a lot about, how that is evolving. I think sometimes, if I had my choice, technicians is a really good word, but it almost needs to be like a service engineer or a technical engineer title to really kind of get people to understand that this is a very advanced person. When you think of mechanic, you can think of a wide variety of things. And a lot of times people think of, the auto lube down the road where they've got like 8 or 9 cars on blocks or something, and then everybody's covered in grease. And the comparison I'll say is like, I don't think of Gordon Ramsay and McDonald's. Like, I know that they are separate. And that's the delineation I think we need to be making is like, when we say a Tesla technician or somebody that works at NASA or even an aeronautics engineer or somebody that works on like the Boeing as a tech or Boeing airplanes as a technician, like there's a higher regard that comes with that. And maybe it's just my own bias, but I would be very comfortable to say we're in that same range.
Yes.
And
I would definitely agree with that.
But that kind of dispels and there's the 3 Ds when it comes to the technician role, or the 3 misconceptions, which are the 3 Ds. It's dirty, it's dangerous, and dark, right? So we kind of dispelled, the dark and dirty kind of aspect. You're definitely going to get your hands dirty working with it, but it's not as bad as it's been in the past. And then your ability to go out and work with that stuff, working with your hands, but then also working with technology too. But let's talk about the misconception of danger and, how much safer things have gotten over several decades of focus and efforts. And can you kind of give some examples of that and kind of your observation now as well?
Absolutely. So, some of the changes I've seen in the space just in the last couple of years is, previously, like if you needed to do like a certain test, you might need the machine running. You might have to hook up some pressure gauges, and you might have to be buy some tires that might move, like if you're doing like a steering test, right? Mm-hmm. What we are, from the Caterpillar standpoint, what we're working on is elimination of live work. So we have, a lot of processes that are being developed or already in place to where you can perform that specific task or that check without needing to put anybody in a situation where they might be injured. And I think that's just one of many processes that continue to be worked through, our MPI cycle, our new product introduction cycle, as we continually refresh these machines, to keep them modernized, as part of the technology and the customer demands, but also from a safety aspect of, if someone needs to go in there and replace this, how do they do that safely? And we have a long history of, our CAT service tools, and even, recommendations by other dealers on how to do specific tasks safely, whether it's a fabricated tool or a specific tool, to help remove like a pump or a different component that makes it much safer to do so. So, you have the global CAT community providing that feedback back to Caterpillar, through technical service conferences or just, feedback through the, the dealer solutions network, to provide that input for either those running changes or for a tool to be developed. So we're, safety is critical both from a Caterpillar standpoint, a dealer standpoint, and customers. Many of our customers, they are successful and continue to be successful due to their safety records. And if they believe that a certain machine in the marketplace could put their employees or the people that work on those machines in danger, then they're going to shy away from buying that product.
Yeah, and the thing I always found too was, there was never a question of doing the work when it came to safety. So if you didn't have the proper protective equipment and you raised that concern, there was never a question from the supervisor of like, I just figured out I didn't have safety glasses when I was your age. I'm fine. And they're like, well, what about your missing finger or like something like that? Like,
Yeah.
but like now, and especially now, but even more so then, um, there's just no question. As soon as you say safety and raise that awareness, like there's no pushing back on that. And they're like, whatever you need in order to get the job done safely and effectively, we'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, back to the Think Big program, one of the very first classes we take the first semester is, safety for both, cribbing, blocking, lifting. So I think that, it's on the forefront, in our education programs, in our machine design, in our literature. So it is a key focus for us.
For sure. So moving on to some other things too, and I know we've been talking for a little while now, but you've moved on from, you were working at Peterson and then you went on, got your bachelor's, and then you started with Caterpillar in, was it still 2007 or 2008?
2008.
Okay. And then I know that that's led to a bunch of different opportunities. And what I want you to share your story, but what I really want to kind of set the table with and highlight that is both yours and mine, and then other people that we'll be talking through with this project or this podcast, is we've all benefited from our career that we had, or our experience that we gained from when we started our career as technicians. And you can stay as a technician and master that craft and become one of the top technicians of that dealership, that region, the world, etc. And there's a lot to that. I don't think that people should be discrediting that in the sense of like, oh, my uncle's a mechanic, he's been a mechanic for 35 years. Yeah, that is a master technician. That's somebody who's dedicated their life to a skill. Just because you don't deem it like as cool or interesting as others doesn't mean others won't, right? So I want to highlight that, but then also the potential that this, just starting with the skills trade has, and how that's created a springboard effect, and that your career specifically has really shown that. So can you talk through a little bit about your career progression with Caterpillar?
Yeah, so I joined in 2008 and went through a marketing training program that Caterpillar has throughout the year. And the marketing training program is mainly just to introduce you to Caterpillar, the different divisions within Caterpillar, and it's a great overview and introduction to the company. You're typically paired up with about 30 other new hires. There's some mid-career in there as well. And it's just a great experience. And after that 3-month program wraps up, I moved on to the global mining team in Decatur, Illinois. So I was focused on, or I guess my first assignment was working in the large mining trucks. And back in 2008, we were working on some developmental programs of kind of refreshing our models for the next generation, mainly driven just due to a few, technology advancements, some emissions that were coming up, and obviously we're very focused on productivity on our machines. So I was fortunate enough to, for the first year and a half, be a part of that team and support the developmental program for the 793 haul truck, 793F, which is a 250-ton mechanical drive haul truck. And so got to spend about half my time in Decatur, Illinois, and half my time at a gold mine in Colorado.
So I forgot about that.
It's a great experience. Great experience for me as a fresh Caterpillar employee. Again, I have the technical toolbox that I pack with me mentally from Think Big, and the kind of the business skills from Think Bigger and Pittsburgh State University, and then now I'm in the field representing Caterpillar and working closely with our engineers and product support team on developing the next generation of trucks. So that was a great experience for me. And then, had a few different short-term roles, just developmental roles, and then ended up moving to Canada to support the electric drive field development program, which is a 795 AC. So at that point, Cat hadn't had an electric drive truck.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fresh going to the field with that product. So I had some mechanical drive truck background. Now we're a little bit bigger truck,
Yeah.
320 ton truck with 3,500 horsepower AC drive. And so being based in physically located in British Columbia for that, and working up in a coal mine, and overall great experience, and when you have these assignments with Caterpillar, you might be there a year, you might be there 3 years, so you just have to embrace it, so it was great to meet different folks at the mine and in the community. And so that program went on for about a year and a half, and then at that point the truck was going into production, the 795, and we had sold 20 of those to a mine site in Ontario. So my wife and I relocated to Timmins, Ontario, and we were based there. And for the first year that I was there, I was specifically assigned to those 795 haul trucks. And again, that was more of a product performance role. So you're helping the dealer, with any technical questions that they had, any early hour issues that we would see, report those back to the factory. So I spent a lot of time. That was at a remote mine site, so I actually lived on site during the week.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. That was a fly-in, fly-out location, right?
I could actually drive to that one. It's about 4 hours from my house, and so it's a awesome experience. A greenfield mine, which means that it was the mine wasn't existing at the time. They were building the roads and building the infrastructure and building the camps. And for me at that point in my life, that was a great experience, because you're spending a lot of time with both dealership people, the mine, personnel, the customer, and you can learn a lot. So there was quite a few nights where I would have dinner with the mine manager and superintendents, and you're all on a first name basis when you're living together. And so that was just an awesome experience. And towards the end of that year, I transitioned over to be the technical rep for the region. And so I remained based in Timmins for the next 2 years, but covered the Tormont territory of Eastern Canada. So I got to spend some time up in the Arctic, in the low Arctic, up in Nunavut, and then up in the north part on Baffin Island, and got to really experience cold weather, as I know you did throughout your career as well. And so just a great experience. And at that point, my work permit was coming up, and my time in Canada was coming to a close. And at that point, I transitioned to Santiago, Chile, to look after large mining trucks down in South America, and mainly focused on the 795 electric drive truck and the 797 mechanical drive truck, which is our largest truck at the time, a 400-ton truck, 4,000 horsepower, and looked after that for a couple of years down there in Chile, and great experience working with the Caterpillar dealer there. Fitting South America is a huge proponent of the Think Big program. Yeah. So that was great to see. And then as my time in Chile wrapped up, I transitioned to a technical rep position back in the U.S., based out of Henderson, Nevada, looking after, again, mostly large mining trucks and our mining equipment. And then just in the last year, I've switched over into the industry sales position. So working with our dealers and our customers on machine selection, product application, what's the right machine, working through that process, for machine purchases.
Yeah. And I would venture to say you're like me in that you never thought of all the opportunities that you would have. Like when you first started, take us back to San Joaquin Delta College, in 2003. I never thought 17 years from then you and I be having this conversation, talk about all these assignments we've had, and just where we've been kind of globetrotting because of our careers.
Exactly. Well, and no one could ever tell you either, like, you're gonna go here, you're gonna go there. Some of it is just timing. Yeah. And some of it's your skill set. And for both you and I, we were very fortunate that we brought a lot of skills to the table early on in our Caterpillar careers, and that set us up very well for some opportunities that that they're life changing. They're I started my family in Canada, and we continued to grow our family in Chile, and Caterpillar's got pretty good marketing and recruiters, but they could never tell you like all the things that would happen throughout your Caterpillar career. And we're, for me, I'm very fortunate and blessed to have had those opportunities.
For sure. So, I mean, we're talking about our perspective of having been through all of this, but then if I'm putting myself back in that 17, 18-year-old space, I'm like, where the heck do I start? Or like, what should I be keeping in mind? Or like, if I'm a parent, what should I be keeping in mind? I mean, do you have any kind of like thoughts or advice on, for potential candidates and then maybe parents or educators in the space?
Well, as a parent now, and you are as well, you think about, okay, what could what are my boys going to grow up to be? And, so some of those thoughts have come across my mind. Mainly I think that, some of the thoughts I have personally is that, do I really want my kids to just go to school and try to figure it out, in university? And I guess my perspective is no, I want them to, pursue their passions, and be able to see, okay, yes, I asked my oldest son, if you want to be, do you want to be an astronaut, or what do you want to, a geologist, what do you want to be? And try to have some of that direction. And, from my perspective, you can't lose with a technical background. It's not like that's going to lose value as, Teslas get more advanced, as Caterpillar machines get more advanced, as we continue to push the envelope as a society, it's going to require a skill set, a skilled individual to look after those products. And so to me, there's some fields out there today that are they going to exist in 20 years? I don't know. And I think I would push my kids, or at least try to explain to my kids, that job might not exist in the future, we're going to, in my opinion, we're going to see a lot of the world change. We're seeing it now with, as in mining trucks. Our trucks can drive themselves with autonomous haulage systems. So if my son told me that, look, I want to go drive a mining truck up in Canada because I can make six figures there, I would probably sit him down and say that might be true today, but that's not going to be true in 10 years. And so it's just having that visibility of, throughout your life, what is going to remain a constant, and, try to make a good career choice based on that.
Yeah. And the thing I found though is, there's always this fear of jobs going away. I know there's a bit of an adage about a year ago of like, learn to code. As much as technology advances, we'll still need somebody that knows how to physically fix it, because we can't use, we can have 3D printing, we can have augmented reality, we can have all these great things, but somebody physically still has to touch this product and physically has to look at this stuff and understand what's going on and, tying it all together. Algorithms, AI, and all that stuff, they could get you maybe a part of the way there, but it's not going to give you the whole thing. I mean, like, and the example I'll say, and I was talking with a friend of mine who's a barber actually, and for a robot, he could do your and my haircut, no problem, right? Or the robot, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, my friend was telling me, he's like, but if it came to like understanding how somebody's hair structure is and like the style that they want, and he's like, you could apply that skill to anything else. Of like, if we take that example of working on our equipment too, it's like there's a very certain way you need to approach things, and I don't think we could ever program that. So I think what I really want people to walk away from this is really understanding that there's always going to be quote unquote fear out there that jobs could be going away, but again, show us what you can learn, and you should be fine and be able to take care of yourself. One of the things that you talked about that I really liked, and I want to kind of bring it back up, and I just read, I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson at all.
No.
So he's a really interesting guy. He's a clinical psychologist, and then he wrote this book on 12 Rules for Life, and He's been in the media for a variety of different topics. And if you kind of peel back the layers of like what his core thesis is on a lot of things, there's some really valuable life lessons. And we pick these lessons up in like old theology stories, as well as, parables from religious books and the Bible, etc. And he kind of really boils that down. But one of the biggest things is he says, you need to be living a life that you believe is purposeful. And that's really what I would want to push with this too, is, no matter what you want to do, just be passionate about it. And if you care about the work, then it's going to pay off. Because if you're just doing something that doesn't matter to you, you're not doing anybody any favors. Maybe your bank, because you're able to pay your mortgage, but like, heck, if you were following your passions, then you'd be able to like maybe maximize that earning potential, because that passion is really taking care of itself and benefiting you back to your career. And especially right now, and this, like where we are in the coronavirus and everything that's going on, I bet there's a lot of people right now that are really questioning what they want to be doing, and what, was the path I followed correct? And was, me going to the university because that's where all my friends were, was that the right choice? Or if I'm the graduating class of 2020 right now and I'm like, the heck are we going to do? I would be finding a job where, one, it's deemed as necessary or essential, like it's in this kind of environment. But I would also be finding a job that I care about, because no matter the economic conditions, as long as you're passionate about the work that you do, I think that's going to continue to benefit you, and that work will kind of seem to surface itself to you.
Yeah, I echo your comments there. And there's folks that wake up and they don't like their job, right? And they're like, oh, I got to go to work today and stuff. And in all honesty, I've never had that experience either at Peterson, or at Caterpillar. I wasn't disgruntled at Peterson. I just was like, I need to hunker down and continue my education. Mm-hmm. And, at one time, I'm sure I could have went back there and carried on at the dealership. And same with Caterpillar, with all the different roles I've had and the role I currently have today. It's not hard to get up and go to, quote unquote work. It doesn't, it's like you said, it's more of a passion. And that, the machines that you're, now that I'm selling, or before that I was supporting, they are making the world a better place. What they're allowing the developed world to continue, whether that's, minerals for products or paved roads, buildings. So it's, you have that sense of, that you are contributing to the greater good.
Yeah. Well, you and I have been going on about this for a little while, and I think maybe for our potential listeners, maybe we should cut it short. But I definitely want to see about having you back on, and I think there's a ton more that we can be talking about this space. But I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to sit down and talk with me about this. And additionally, just want to thank you for the experience of knowing you and working with you the past 17 years. You've definitely been an example and kind of set the pace in a lot of ways. And we've been on some teams together from work, and I'm just like, God dang it, he's going to raise the bar, and I got to be pushing myself even harder. So thank you for pushing that and bringing that side out in me. And I don't think it would be there without you. So really
I appreciate your time and appreciate your friendship. And looking forward to it.
So that's going to bring today's session to a close. I do want to thank you for taking time out of your schedules to listen to this as well. If you want to be a part of the conversation, or know somebody that should be a part of this conversation and wants to talk with me a bit, please contact me at REOME_GRIFFIN_E@cat.com. Thank you, and look forward to talking with you more.